Hiya, it's Suedy here from Juicy Body Art and Face Painting in Melbourne. And whenever people have a look at my kit, they ask me, why are your one strokes all curvy on the top? And I'm going to show you why today and show you how to dome your own one strokes. So basically, the idea to dome my one strokes came about when I was using my one strokes and they started to get a little dip in the middle, and eventually that dip would turn into a big messy puddle, and then you'd have paint on either side and nothing in the middle, and it was done. And I thought, there's got to be a better way. If it's wearing away in the middle, why don't I just make it a little bit taller in the middle so that it doesn't wear away like that? And so as you can see here, this is one that I've done already. You can see that it goes down to pretty much nothing at either end, and in the center, can you see that? In the center it's nice and raised. So I try, whenever I mean of course as you pick up certain colors it'll wear away kind of in the middle, and you still might need to repair it now and then, but since I started doing this I don't get those muddy puddles in the middle of the cake that turn that whole, all those beautiful colors yucky and muddy. It's faster to load because it's curved. It has more surface area, so you don't have to pass your brush over the top of it quite so many times to load it. All of the water just drains away. If there's any excess water, it drains away down to the sides of the cake, and you can just tip that out onto a towel instead of it sitting in the middle and making your paint go gluggy in the center. I also find that because it's domed in the middle, I can get pretty much right down to the bottom of the cake, and it eventually just flattens down instead of creating a shape like this, that concave shape. So I can get right down to the bottom of a cake. So it means that I save money as well. Now, the best way to do it is to make your own. I always make my own one strokes now. I never buy them from the shops anymore because I have so many spare colors. But what I've done, this was a domed one, and I have actually cut it down so that it's nice and level so that I can demonstrate to you how you can turn your store-bought flat one-stroke cakes into a domed cake. So all you really need for this is a one-stroke, obviously. I use a tissue or sometimes a wet wipe to press it down at the end, and some sort of tool that you'll be able to slice into the cake with. This is a makeup spatula that I bought from a makeup store, and I love this. I don't know if you can see, but this beautiful little spatula here, it's really, really thin, so that it sort of slices on the ends, but it's not as sharp as a Stanley knife or a craft knife or something like that, which is important to me because I'm really clumsy and I'm likely to cut myself by accident. So I like using this. It's got a really nice flat tip, so it's good for scooping and good for slicing. But you can use whatever you've got around the house. Even a butter knife or something would be handy, but I find this tool really, really good for precision. All right, so basically the idea of turning this one stroke into a domed one stroke or a humped one stroke, or however you want to call it, is I'm going to dig into this at an angle. So if we had x-ray vision, you'd be seeing me cutting into the cake at an angle like this. Okay, so we're just going to cut a little wedge out. Some cakes are easier to do this with than others. See how this one starts to crumble? And that's because sometimes the paint inside it is a little bit old, or sometimes it's metallic or whatever, and that's okay. Just try to do your best. And what we've got here is a little bit of a wedge. All right, I'm just going to wipe my spatula down here. All right, we've got a little wedge cut out, and what we want to do is we want to line up the colors and flip that wedge into the center so that we've got a raised center and a receded side. So I'm going to take my little spatula. This is going to happen in pieces because this is a little bit crumbly. And I'm going to flip that around, and I'm going to take this other little one, flip that over. Now it's a little bit of a mess at the moment. Let me just get that in camera for you. And I'm just gently pressing down, making sure that I've got the colors lined up where they should be. This is a bit of a messy example, but that's good because it shows you that you can still do it even if your cakes are a little bit crumbly. So anything that doesn't belong, I'm just going to pull it out. I'm going to tap out any crumbs that are too annoying to keep in the cake. And there you can see we've got a receded side and it's raised up in the middle. Now, of course, if you had a fuller cake than this, if it was right to the top, you'd have a little bit more paint in the center, and you probably wouldn't have so much empty there. I'm going to do the other side for you as well so that you can see it repeated. So that process again is that I'm going to cut at an angle down this way into the cake. All right, so we've got a bit of a wedge, and then I'm going to flip it over so that it's touching the other wedge, and then I'm just going to press it down, nice and gentle. And if there are any colours that aren't really aligned very nicely, like this one, I'm just going to push that over, might even chop a little piece of it out, move it over, tap any crumbs out that are annoying. Now, this looks like a hot mess right now, but you'll find I'm going to, because this is a little bit dry, I'm going to use a wet wipe instead of a tissue. If you had a, I find that dry tissues are really good to use for metallic cakes because the dry tissue doesn't pull up quite so much of that really soft paint. But for something that's really dry and crumbly like this, a wet wipe is really, really good. So I'm just going to grab one of those. So here I have a nice clean wet wipe, and what I'm just going to do is put it over the top of the entire cake, and I'm just going to press down. This is just to secure the paint where it is and to push any crumbs back into where they're supposed to be. So I'm just pressing down with my thumb. You might want to wear gloves during this process as well if you don't want your fingers to turn all sorts of gnarly colours, because this is a bit of a messy process. If anybody who's repaired their own one strokes will know that this can be a little bit of a messy process. So I'm just pressing down, and you'll notice I haven't moved the wet wipe, because if you move it side to side you end up smushing the colours across. So I'm pushing down, paying particular attention to the ends and just making sure that the centre is all nice and set in. And when you're done there, you just peel it off. And that's not too bad. Let me just take my one-stroke brush. I'm just going to take my one-stroke brush and go over this and see how it goes. So of course, if you had a brand new fresh cake that's never been repaired before, you'll be able to line up the stripes of colour a lot better than this. But this was just one of my higgledy-piggledy little buddies that I fixed up for you so that you could see what I can do. So as you can see, it's a really nice load, a beautiful blended load, and you can do all sorts of beautiful things with it. Use it like your normal one strokes as usual. So there you go. What I'm also going to show you, so now that you know how to do that to your store-bought cakes, and you can see how there's a little bit of a gap down the sides here. As the cake wears down, you do tend to get more and more of a gap because you're loading from side to side. And that's good because you want any excess water or muddy paint to be trapped in that area so that you can then go in there with a wet wipe and just get rid of any of the yucky muddy stuff so that it doesn't make a mess on your cake and give you muddy designs. All right, so that's one way to do it. And now I'm going to show you how I do it from scratch. As usual guys, I talk too much and I need to put the rest of this into a new video. So if you'd like to know how to dome your own one strokes when you're making them from scratch, click here for part 2.